This is Holy Faith Media.
Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Rossinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into this breach of the American culture. And that's what we do every week, Sunday night at 8 o'clock. You know, a while ago, we used to say Facebook and YouTube. But thanks to our producer, Jonathan Ross, up in Canada on Holy Faith Media, whenever we go live, we're going across about 20 different platforms, which is phenomenal. We are now on Rumble. We're on BitChute. We're on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're getting anywhere between, let's say, at least 10 to 15,000 views per week. We are now live streaming our interviews, which is awesome. We just started that today with Father Thomas Daly. That interview is up on our Facebook and YouTube page and also on Holy Faith Media. And we have you to thank for it, because you guys show up every week. You support us, particularly with your prayers, and we really, really appreciate that. Now, for now, as I've said on past shows recently, we are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Eventually, we hope not to be until they come around or they kick us off. Either way, which I'm sure that'll happen. But either way, what we'd love is for you to like, subscribe, share. Wherever you see a little button and you're watching us that could support us in any way, please click it. I try to do that for people I like. I would ask you to do that for us. That'll help us reach a much wider audience. And let's face it. You know, Joe and I say all the time, you know, are we really just covering what a lot of other people are covering? We are to a degree. Okay, we're giving our front line with Joe and Joe spin, our North Jersey Goomba style, and our analysis and our kitchen table commentary. We are doing that. But we are also looking for stories that are not being covered, at least maybe even prominently on even conservative sites. They might be there, but they're not being covered on podcasts, particularly in the underbelly of the culture war, which mostly involves, let's say for argument's sake, the stuff that they want to ram down your children's throats. So again, one more time, you know, we thank you because we feel like we're little by little, inch by inch. You know, God is enabling us to carve out a niche where we have something to say. You guys like it, and I promise you, and Joe promises you, we are going to keep saying it. So stick it around with us for the whole time tonight because we have a great conversation. Just want to give you a little bit of a preview. We have to talk about Biden and the bishops and what's being called the new, catch that word, the new face of American Catholicism.
Explain that a little bit, Joe.
Well, the thing is this. Catholicism is the last acceptable bigotry left in America. That's not made up by Joe and Joe. Bill Donahue at the Catholic League, many other people have said that for many, many years. I think that's something that's demonstrable, okay? You really can show that. But in order to make Catholicism acceptable, well, let's go back to 1960. John F. Kennedy went down to the Southern Protestants in Texas and basically told them, yes, I'm Catholic, but I'm not going to govern like one. And that was acceptable. Joe Biden, however, is getting up there and he's saying, no, I'm a devout Catholic. And yet on day one, I think he expanded the Mexico City policy. He's already making moves as far as expanding baby killing is concerned, and a bunch of other things that are you know, Rachel Levine. I think we're going to cover that tomorrow, or are we going to cover that tonight?
Well, we can
mention it tonight. Rachel Levine, a transgender from Pennsylvania, is his assistant health secretary. So he is the acceptable Catholic. And even though he's not acting as a Catholic, the media is saying, well, there's the new face of American Catholicism.
It's palatable.
Right, it's palatable to them because Joe Biden, forget about guys like us, where we're going to bring up contraception as being a problem. That's not even going to come into the equation. Joe Biden and his version of Catholicism is perfectly fine with gay marriage, perfectly fine with abortion, totally good with these things, and that is acceptable. And that's the conversation we're going to have. However, we have to segue into that when we talk about a letter that was written by Archbishop Gomez, okay, where he's spot on, okay? He's coming under some criticism too. We'll get into that. So we're going to talk about that letter. We're going to talk about some excerpts from that letter, okay, because it's important to see his language and the way he's speaking, and we're going to get into that. We need to apply the rule or the Catholic teaching of subsidiarity in America. What is subsidiarity? That's a fancy way of saying local control, federalism, states' rights. Start solving problems on a local level and screw the federal government. That's subsidiarity. Okay, Matt Walsh had something to say about that. We want to talk about it. Mike Huckabee says Trumpism ain't going anywhere. Okay, and we happen to agree with him on that. We might disagree on some of the details, but Trumpism's not going anywhere because it's not Trumpism per se. It's Make America Great. It's America First. And that means there's 100 million people that are part of this movement. We ain't going anywhere. Stephen Mosher, okay, and we love Stephen Mosher on the show. We've mentioned him numerous times. He had a few things to say about Trump that we think you're going to be interested in. You had the inauguration the other day. We're on Sunday right now. Back on, what was it, Wednesday? So the inauguration, you got Antifa violence. But did the press say anything about that? We'll talk about that. And then finally, some strategies, okay? There's a number of strategies that we could start to employ that are going to help us to fight this culture war, okay? And we're going to talk about those because in the Federalist, there's an article that there's a number of strategies that we could use where we could come out of this stronger than we went in. And I think you're going to agree. So having said all that, thank you again, and I'm kicking it over to Joe.
So as Joe said, we're going to start off with the bishops Biden and the new face of American Catholicism. I think this is a very important story because the media is going to try to basically couch Biden. Their talking point is he's a devout Catholic. No matter what. They're not asking the right questions. We're going to try to ask those questions, and we're going to have a discussion. Basically, the Catholic Church in America has been thrust into a new and unprecedented crisis, namely the election of Joseph Biden to the presidency. If not dealt with properly, Biden's presidency will cause serious damage to the very truth of what it means to be Catholic. Of course, I am referring to the fact that while Biden professes the Catholic faith, he fully supports, pay attention to this now, legalized abortion, same-sex marriage, and transgenderism.
Because remember, he said there's at least 3 genders.
Oh, that's classic.
That's classic.
And vowed that he will do all he can to advance these causes during his administration. Nonetheless, Biden's practice of Catholicism, this is very important, and this is what we're going to discuss right now. Biden's practice of Catholicism will be on display for the whole world to observe as he attends Mass and receives Holy Communion. And this is what we mean by this is now the new face of American Catholicism to the world. You have a man who has fully embraced the global ideas, which are also put forth in the UN. And what do I mean by that? Abortion upon demand, transgenderism, and same-sex marriage, all of which the Catholic Church has never supported, ever. Yet the media is going to portray this man as he's a devout Catholic. That's all the talking point. His new press secretary says it constantly. And this is the danger. And this is why the bishops have to speak up. This is why people like you and I have to speak up. We have to ask the right questions. And frankly, if you ask the right questions, the conversation ends. Because you cannot be a devout Catholic and be for abortion.
Can I give an example of that?
Absolutely.
Perfect example of what Joe's saying. Jen Psaki, she's the press secretary for Biden. She's an Obama retread. So Biden's got a lot of retreads from the Obama administration. We said on this show months ago, that, and it's not genius on our part, it was plain as the nose on your face, that if the Democrats won, that regime would be the third term of Barack Obama. I don't think that's deniable. He's got all sorts of retreads from the Obama administration. There was a reporter who showed some stones in one of the first press conferences and pressed Jen Psaki on the Mexico City policy and a couple of other things, okay, which Trump did away with the Mexico City policy, okay, or did away with it or supported it. Either way, it was a pro-life measure, not having American tax money go to funding abortions overseas. So this reporter pressed her on that and asked a tough question like that. What was her response? You think she responded to it?
Joe Biden is a devout Catholic. That's all they're going to say.
That's all she said. And then she shut it down. She shut it down. See, they don't want to have that conversation. That's why we have to force that conversation. We have to have the stones to say, no, Mr. Biden, it is not judgmental for me to say that you are not a devout Catholic. Because if you were, and you said, even let's say for argument's sake, if you wanted to accept, which we do not, that he's pro-choice, okay? Joe Biden doesn't stop there. Joe Biden is in favor of abortion up to the end of the end of term, at the moment of birth. Joe Biden wants to make Americans pay for American taxpayers pay for abortion. He wants to expand abortion access overseas. He wants to codify Roe versus Wade in the federal law. You know what that tells me? He's not pro-choice. He is aggressively pro-baby slaughter.
And this is why you can't support him.
That's why you can't support him.
And we're going to prove that by basically talking about canon law and also some Vatican statements from the 70s, all the way back to the 70s. But another thing I want to highlight is this. Joe Biden, and don't think he's doing this by chance. He has a picture from his desk with himself and the Pope. It's very visible. Joe Biden cannot hide behind the Pope. Pope Francis has been very vocal on abortion as well, and I want to read you what he has said. The Pope has been consistently outspoken regarding the evil of abortion as part of the throwaway culture. For instance, in his 2014 address to the Italian Movement of Life, Francis stated, "Human life is sacred and inviolable. Every civil right is based on the recognition of the first fundamental right, the right to life, which is not subject to any condition of a qualitative economic and certainly not an ideological nature." As recently as January 2020, Francis expressed agreement with the U.S. bishops, and I quote, identifying the protection of the unborn as a preeminent priority.
Now catch that, because 1/3 of the American bishops basically did not vote for that. 2/3 did, to say, in that language that Joe's saying, preeminent.
But that's the Pope.
Preeminent. But this is the
Pope
saying it.
Saying this, by the way. By the way, the Pope has also said that homosexuals should not be allowed as priests. You see, that's not what the press says, but that's what Francis has said. Look it up. So this is my point. They're very selective as far as what they quote Pope Francis on. I'm telling you what he said, because he did say it.
Yeah, as long as Pope Francis says something that they like, which unfortunately since 2013 has been numerous things, okay, they'll report on that. But when he says something that's doctrinally correct, okay, nobody wants to say anything about it.
The bishops' here's another thing. The bishops' working committee can thus easily demonstrate that Biden's advocacy and facilitation of abortion is hardly consistent with the vision of Pope Francis. Yet Biden has that picture there because he's trying to paint an image, and the press is picking up on it. And this is what the bishops in America have to be careful of, because it creates a scandal. He is a public figure. He is the president. Now, this is the twist. November 24th, 2020, just 1 week after the working committee of the U.S. bishops basically met, Cardinal Wilton Gregory of D.C. declared, very important, that he would not refuse Holy Communion to Joe Biden. His pastoral approach, in quotation marks, of course, signaled, this is what he's saying by his actions, that Biden is a good Catholic. And as a kind of preemption, made it more difficult for the working committee to come to a different conclusion. You see, this is a scandal.
Right. I want to touch on that. Deborah Strickland's in the chat room. She says she's responding to Welch in the chat room. She says, I'm a Protestant and absolutely know Biden isn't a true Catholic. But many, many other Protestants are now very confused. Deborah, this is what Joe's talking about as far as scandal is concerned. You're not supposed to be confused. If you don't want to be Catholic, okay, is one thing. Okay, and nobody could force you to be Catholic. The church would even say that. There's no such thing as forced conversions. It's not from the heart, okay? So nobody would force you. But at the very least, Catholicism should not be something that's presented in a confusing or scandalous way.
It's as clear as day.
It's clear as day. So the thing is, that's the problem, and one of the problems we have. That's why alternative Catholic media, and there's a bunch of us out there, much bigger fish than us. We are becoming larger fish, thank the Lord, okay? And people are listening to us. But collectively, there's a lot of us saying, no, our Protestant brothers and sisters, here's Catholicism. Are Joe and I paragons of virtue? Hardly, okay? Are we both sinners? We're all sinners, okay? But do we know our faith? As St. Paul said, or Paul or Peter, be prepared to give a defense for what it is you believe. Yes, that we could do. And what we do know is Joe Biden, because we know our faith, is not a devout Catholic. Can I mention something else? Father Martin. Father Martin is a problem. Now, Joe and I have, moving forward, we've always told the truth. Sometimes I'm going to speak for myself. I lack charity. From now on, it's truth with charity and charity with truth. So I'm not going to beat him over the head, okay? Father Martin should not be listened to by anybody.
And charity with clarity.
All right, charity with clarity. Father Martin is on with who else, okay? An interviewer from, where else? America Magazine. What is America Magazine? Father Martin's magazine, okay? Basically pushing the seamless garment argument. Okay, he is contradicting the bishops who have said, 2/3 of those bishops said, it should be all of them, but 2/3 have said that including Pope Francis, that abortion is the preeminent priority. Father Martin's out there and he's pushing seamless garment, meaning, well, your view on the environment is a life issue. Your view on the death penalty is a life issue. Your view on immigration is a life issue. So, and he said these words. So it's not just abortion. Sorry, Father Martin, it is just abortion. You can't get any of those other issues correct if you can't first and foremost condemn abortion at any place, at any time, under any circumstances. Babies in the womb have done nothing to deserve to be murdered, Father Martin, and you know that. You know that. So my thing about Deborah, my response to Deborah is, Deborah, our job, one of the jobs that Joe and I have brought on our shoulders is to try to clarify, while we're talking about politics and culture and everything else, try to clarify what it is that Catholics believe. So that Protestants like you, like I said, if you reject Catholicism, at least you'll be rejecting Catholicism based on what it is and not what the culture or the media says it is.
And the important thing with that is this: knowledge is power. And what I'm going to read to you right now is knowledge. And this is what you need to know. Because when people have these arguments, you have to point to documents. You have to point to canons. You see, these are not my opinions or Joe's opinions. This is the church's teaching. It's as crystal clear as the day is long. And the church, it's not for us to interpret. It isn't. You either take it or you leave it. So what is expected of Catholics in public office? It was first clearly laid out in 1974. This is 1 year after Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade came out, what, 73? So in 1974, a Vatican declaration on procured abortion. This is Article 22 of that document. This is what it says. It's very clear. It says, and this was 1 year after Roe v. Wade, so this has been on the books for almost 50 years. It said this: it must in any case be clearly understood that whatever may be laid down by civil law in this matter, man can never obey a law which is in itself immoral, and as such is the case of a law which would admit in principle the legitimacy of abortion. Pay attention to this last sentence. Nor can he take part in a propaganda campaign in favor of such a law or vote for it.
Sounds pretty clear.
Moreover, he may not collaborate in this application. Now, what's the next thing I want you to know? It's Canon 915. We've noted this on the show numerous times. This is part of the canon law, and it's also quite clear. And this is what it said. Those who obstinately persevere in manifest grave sin are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. Joe Biden, for quite some time, has taken this position. It is a grave matter, and he is obstinately persevering in it.
And you can't claim ignorance because he knows that it's a grave matter. Therefore, it's a mortal sin.
And this is what you have to tell people.
I want to make one comment. Mark Gallagher's in the chat room. Mark, just so you know, and I say this respectfully to you, you say that holding up signs in front of abortion clinics and praying the rosary don't do any good. I don't know if you're new to the front line with Joe and Joe, but let's say for argument's sake the law is not going to change or funding of abortion is not going to change. Okay, but I want to just give you a piece of information, okay, that you might not have. Praying, and this is according to Planned Parenthood, okay? When there are prayer warriors praying in front of Planned Parenthood, praying those rosaries and holding up those signs, they get a 75% no-show rate. 75% of the women that were supposed to go there to kill their babies do not go in. Those do much more good than the law can because on a weekly and daily basis, those prayer warriors are saving babies' lives because their mothers see them there and they walk away. That's a stat, Mark. It's not an attack on you. We can understand what you're saying. Sometimes even prayer warriors think, am I wasting my time? Is God listening? God's listening. And those women that see you praying there, they turn around and they don't go in. So it does do, Mark, with all due respect, praying in front of abortion clinics does a whole lot of good.
And this is the type of thing which you have to do to people, well, not do to people, say to people. Because you get many Catholics feel that you could support Joe Biden. Many Catholics voted for Joe Biden. You cannot. And what you have to do, it's not about my opinion. My opinion doesn't mean anything, actually. It's the church's opinion.
That's right.
And what I'm telling you, based upon that 1974 Vatican Declaration on procured abortion, Article 22, and also Canon 915, it's very clear. Mm-hmm. And then listen, then walk away. You did your job. You said the truth. And frankly, it's not your truth. It's the truth.
It's the truth.
And then it's up to the person. And frankly, you know, we all make decisions in life. Life's about decisions. I want to make 3 points, though, that need to be made in light of what I just read to you regarding Joe Biden. Joe Biden, in receiving Holy Communion, basically provides a bad example to others. It's a scandal. You see, it's very different if I do something because I'm not a public figure. Joe Biden is a public figure, and that's why Canon 915 is applicable. Okay? That's number one. Number two, Joe Biden is a baptized Catholic, and his soul is at stake. We are called to pray for Joe Biden. I do every night when I pray the rosary with my wife, and you are too. He's not our enemy. We have to pray for his conversion. God could work miracles. I can't.
Let me cut you off real quick. We're very honored. Michael Hitchborn's in the comment box, and he says if you want to cover stories that are not covered by mainstream media, Michael wants to talk about CRS, CCHD, and the communist infiltration of the Catholic Church. Michael, just as you know, and we'll communicate, we'd love to have you on. We'd love to do an interview with you on all of that. We think it would be a great conversation. So thanks for joining us tonight, Michael. Really appreciate it. But now, let's go. Now, you state that very clearly, okay? Now, to me, when you state something clear, remember something. Unfortunately, we live in a society and in a culture, and amongst a lot of Catholics, too, that believe that somehow, some way, church teaching is just something that so-and-so says or so-and-so says. Church teaching, let's be clear, because there are Protestants in the chat room right now, okay? Our brothers and sisters. Church teaching is based on 2,000 years of Scripture, or 2,000-year teaching that is based on Scripture, sacred tradition, and magisterial teaching of the church, and all rooted, of course, in what we know by nature. So that's what the basis of church teaching is. It's a three-legged stool. Now, when Father Martin says something, or any other priest, and I'm not bashing Pope Francis, I'm just saying it's clear, or even the Pope, when any prelate departs from that, any priest departs from that, they're not preaching church teaching. Father Martin's a poster boy for that. He's out there saying things like to the gay community, God loves you, and the church is learning to love you. I'm sorry, Father Martin. I know you're a priest and everything, and you're a Jesuit and probably very highly educated. Would you think, Father? That's a. I don't want to say stupid. We're not calling people names. It's not a good statement, Father. Okay, to say that the church, whose job it is to save souls, to love the sinner, does not love homosexuals because the church teaches that sodomy is a mortal sin. That's what you're out there saying. But my point in bringing this up is, our Protestant brothers and sisters need to know church teaching doesn't depend on what's coming out of a person's mouth, like Joe said, okay? It has to be rooted in the 2,000-year teaching of the Catholic Church. That's the important part.
And also the natural law.
And the natural law. So that what you think, okay, in other words, explain that. I mean, I heard it put this way. Who told us? Professor Robert George, okay? Natural law basically is the idea that laws are not made by men. Laws are discovered. And how do you discover them? By nature. Let's take abortion. You don't need to tell anybody that abortion is immoral, that it's evil, because you know by nature that a mother should not kill her child in the womb. That's an example of the natural law.
Makes kind of sense to me.
When Cain killed Abel, who was innocent, okay, we know when we read that story that we say, man, that was wrong. That was wrong for Cain to kill his brother Abel. Abel didn't do anything wrong. We know by nature. That's what the natural law is. We discover laws, okay, and then we make laws based on that. So just to be clear, but that's what we all have to get through our head, because in our American culture, there's too many competing voices. America Magazine's one of them. National Catholic Reporter is another one. We would encourage people that if you're going to read those with caution, okay, because they're not really, when it comes down to it, speaking about authentic Catholic teaching, and that's just the way it is. But I'll tell you who is. Now, I've heard a little bit of criticism, okay, of Archbishop Gomez. Too little, too late, milquetoast, kind of like playing the middle. Joe and I don't agree with that. We are happy that Archbishop Gomez came out with a letter to, not direct, I don't think it was addressed to Joe Biden, but it basically was a pastoral letter. Okay, and a letter from an archbishop, a major archbishop in the USCCB. Joe wants to get into that breach.
And in terms of giving credit where credit's due, the letter, I think, was charitable and as well as informative, and he addressed what needed to be addressed. So again, Joe and I will be critical of bishops, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, the critical side of it, with regard to Cupich's response to Archbishop Gomez, which I thought was not fair. And it also created scandal, and it also created confusion.
Let me just say this only because it puts a finer point on it, Joe. The Len is in the chat room, said the 10 Commandments put the natural law into words. Perfectly said. That's basically what it is. That is perfectly said. Couldn't have said it any better. Thank you for that, Len.
But in terms of what Gomez had to say, I think he addressed what needed to get addressed. And I want to just touch on a few of basically his statements. He says this, as pastors, the nation's bishops are given the duty of proclaiming the gospel in all its truth and power, in season and out of season, even when that teaching is inconvenient or when the gospel's truths run contrary to the direction of wider society and culture. So I must point out that Joe Biden has pledged to pursue certain policies that would advance moral evils and threaten human life and dignity, most seriously in the areas of abortion, contraception, marriage, and gender.
Let me stop you for 1 second, why I think that's important. If Archbishop Gomez was pulling punches, he would have stopped with abortion. He did not. That was deliberate. He mentions every single erroneous position and evil that Biden's trying to promote. Abortion, what was it, Joe? Contraception, which is the root of all our problems. I wish people would understand that, okay? Marriage and gender. Those are the things that are destroying America, not whether your taxes are going to go up 3% or not. Not whether the Keystone Pipeline is going to get shut down, even though we don't want it to get shut down. These are the things, these issues that Archbishop Gomez pointed out, all of them. Those are the things that are wrecking this country. not those other things.
Well,
so
yeah,
he's spot on.
He
Joe.
is spot on. And someone who isn't thinking through a Catholic lens may not understand what we're talking about, why contraception is basically ruining America. And a good way to explain that is when you're not open to life, you're not living your marriage vows in accordance the way God asked us to. And a big reason why people get divorced is because of that. Do you know that families that practice natural family planning, who are open to life and who basically space out their children, have a 3% divorce rate? That's not dogmatic, that's statistical. Marriage was made to be a sacrament. And even our Protestant brothers and sisters, they have 2 sacraments, baptism and marriage. We have 7 as Catholics. So the point of that is this: to be closed off to life means you're not living a marriage that is in the light of God, which leads to divorce. And divorce leads to a fractured society. I just wanted to elaborate on that because even Catholics don't know that when they talk about contraception, because most Catholics contracept, sadly.
Yeah.
It's probably well into the 90s. So, and that's a big reason because the Catholic divorce rate is just as high as the society's divorce rate. I just wanted to elaborate that. I'm sorry I digress. But this is also what Gomez had to say. He said, of deep concern, this is also what he touched on, is the liberty of the church and the freedom of believers to live according to their conscience. He's talking about religious liberty, and Joe Biden's agenda is going to attack religious liberty. And that's why, again, I sometimes don't understand how religious people can vote for this man. He's attacking the very church you support. Now listen, if you have problems with Donald Trump, and some people do, fine. Write your husband in as the president then. It's our duty to vote. If some people say, I can't vote for Donald Trump.
Write me in.
Vote.
I'll fight against China.
You cannot support somebody who's attacking the very church that you go to.
I don't even know what these people are listening to.
And here's the thing, he is. This is not my opinion.
And if you think he's not attacking you, let's say as a religious person in America, that the kind of amorphous term, person of faith, religious person, okay? If you don't think he's attacking you, wait till you see what kind of judges he puts up. Now, hopefully he doesn't get any as far as the conservative side is concerned, okay? But maybe he'll get some federal judges, okay? Wait till you see some of these wackos he puts up. You're going to be forced to have to deal with all this nonsense. And from him, too, by the way. And from him, with his cabinet appointments, people like Javier Becerra, who we covered a couple weeks ago, that Mr. Anti-Catholic Catholic. How do people listen to the left, the Marxist Party in America, and not come to the conclusion, you know what, I might not be able to go to church if these guys come to power, at least not in any sort of real way? Well, guess what? That's coming soon to a theater near you.
The bishop also stressed this. He said, protecting unborn babies from abortion will continue to be the preeminent priority for Catholics. That is a big statement that he made, okay? He goes on. This is, like I said, I got to give credit where credit's due. This was a great statement. He goes on, we have deep concerns about many threats to human life and dignity in our society. Pope Francis teaches we cannot stay silent when nearly 1 million unborn lives are being cast aside in our country year after year through abortion. Get this. This was great that he said this, and I want to talk about it. He said, abortion is a direct attack on life that also wounds the woman and undermines the family. Now get this. Gomez points out how abortion disproportionately destroys the lives of the poor and minority children and children with disabilities. I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it again because I say it all the time. You want to talk about the seamless garment argument? You cannot say you're for the poor and you're for abortion.
Right.
It doesn't jive.
Right.
It doesn't jive.
It makes no sense. And another thing too, okay? Because we covered this other guy, Ibram Kendi, on the show. He's that critical race theorist, which is a lot of malarkey. Okay, to use like a word
that's
from
a Joe Biden word.
That's yeah. I take that back. It's a lot of BS, is what is critical race theory is a lot of BS. Part of what Mr. Kendi, and I'm telling you guys this at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Please like, subscribe, share this video, all that fun stuff. Please support us. I'm telling you this so you have a really good argument. See, we all need good arguments. I was watching John Henry Weston yesterday, right? It was a video from like 2 years ago where he was giving the audience of young kids arguments to make, okay? I'm going to give you a good argument. I think it's pretty good. You tell me. If you don't think so and you think I'm full of you-know-what, put it in the chat room. When Ibram Kendi talks about systemic racism, and basically part of his race hucksterism that he promotes is that if you deny that there's systematic racism in America, that makes you a racist. You caught that, right, Joe?
I have heard of him say that.
So then I would turn around to Mr. Kendi and others like him, because there's a lot of them. That 1619 chick from Nicole Hannah-Jones, whatever, from the New York Times, okay? What I would say to them is, no, I absolutely agree that systemic racism takes place in America, but I'm going to give you the two areas where it does. Not where you say it does, but the two areas where it does. Number one is big abortion, and the other one is big education. Now, let's keep it with abortion for a second. We said this before. In New York City, Joe and I live a few miles outside of New York City, okay? In New York City, more black babies are killed in the womb than are born. That's a fact. Is it not? Well, we covered that for a very long time.
That is, and you know, during, I believe it was Bloomberg's administration, a billboard was going to be put up in Soho stating that, and they made them put it down because they thought it was going to cause a riot.
Right. So again, an example of free speech, you know, the people that champion free speech in New York City, but that's a fact. That means the people that support abortion target, as Joe said, poor, okay? A lot of black people in the city are poor, okay? And obviously they're minorities. So black and Hispanic people are killing their babies in larger numbers, and it's promoted in those communities by Planned Parenthood. Now, to me, that's systemic racism, because then the practice itself is protected by the system. That's what systemic racism means. So I would agree with them and give them that argument. Say, yo, you're right. Systemic racism exists mainly in the abortion industry because it's a racist industry. And the other one is big education, which we won't get into. We've gotten into on other shows how the education system in America is blatantly racist. Good way to challenge them on systemic racism, okay? Because they're not going to, their brains will explode, because that would take a little bit of intelligence to try to sift through those arguments, and you can't sift through them. They're blatantly racist, and we have to let them know that.
But I think what I think we also have to point out is basically Gomez's words are falling on deaf ears with regard to Biden, who, again, the talking point that his press secretary says time and time again is Joe Biden is a devout Catholic. You cannot be a devout Catholic and be for abortion. You cannot be a devout Catholic and be for same-sex marriage. You cannot be a devout Catholic and be for transgenderism, particularly in public schools, in all, and even at the age from kindergarten to 8th grade. You cannot be a devout Catholic, and you cannot support that with your vote.
Right.
You cannot. I read you the Vatican document. This is not my opinion. You cannot, and if you do, this is my suggestion, sit before the Blessed Sacrament and pray about it.
I bet you won't vote Democrat.
Pray about it.
You might not vote Republican.
Because I am telling you this right now, in good conscience, you cannot support that. It disqualifies you.
If you can't get that straight, how are you supposed to make an argument about any other real and true, not this social justice warrior stuff, any true injustices in this country? How could we address those things if you cannot address the gravest injustice?
And this is not because I want Donald Trump to be the president. If Donald Trump was for these things, I'm not voting for him. You see, this is not me putting on my Republican tribal hat.
Right.
This is me putting on the most important hat that I put on. I'm a Catholic male. And I will never support a Republican or a Democrat that is for abortion, that is for same-sex marriage, and that is for transgenderism. Ever.
And if you're a Republican,
neither should you.
If you're a Republican that takes those positions, and there's a few of them. Let me tell you something. This thing that's coming our way called the Equality Act, okay, which is basically the Christian Persecution Act. Everybody better open their eyes and open their ears about what that's all about. And there's going to be a lot of Republicans that vote for that legislation, Joe Resinello. I'm telling you right now. They're going to let the left bully them by saying, "Are you opposed to equality?"
Well,
that's what they're going to say.
That's a conversation for a different day. But what is Joe Biden basically closing his ears to? Biden and the Democratic leaders are pushing for more abortions despite strong public objections. By the way, third trimester abortion is on the books in America. We're one of 7 countries, only 7 countries in the world that supports that position, and over 80% of America is against it. Among other things, they want to end the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits taxpayer funding for elective abortions in Medicare and other federal programs. Without it, taxpayers could be forced to pay for tens of thousands of unborn baby abortion deaths every year. Last year, Joe Biden even called abortion an essential medical service during the coronavirus pandemic. His health care plan would expand abortions as well by forcing insurance companies to cover abortions as essential health care under Obamacare. And let me stop right there. Guess who they're going to force to do that? The Catholic Church. And this is where I'll be honest with you. You know what it's like? It's like talking to a drug addict. You tell people these things. How could you support somebody that is going to persecute your family? You're Catholic, right? Well, we're all family. That means we're family. We're all in the same church. How do you vote for somebody that is going to attack your family?
And has attacked
and
your
he's
family.
going. He has and will.
And they call your church or the teachings of your church hate speech.
And I'm telling you this. I'm not lying to you. And it's like talking to a drug addict. They say, "You're right, Joe. You're right. Who'd you vote for?" Joe Biden. And you're like, because I'm going to tell you what they're going to do if they have their way. They're going to force the church, who employs people, to basically put those abortifacients and basically abortion coverage in their medical coverage, which goes against the conscience of the church.
Right.
That goes for colleges. That goes for hospitals. So I'm not making this up.
No.
So I don't understand. Because here's what you're saying. I'm telling you what you're saying, whether you realize it or not, because there's no more sitting on the fence. That's not a priority to you. You see, things that are priorities, you do. It's like your kids, okay? What's more important, going to church on Sunday or Little League? Little League's important. I played Little League. There's a lot of things you learn in Little League about life, about sticking with something, about winning, about losing, about discipline, about practice. There's a lot of things you could learn in sports. But what's more important, church or sports for kids? Most parents, sadly, look at sports as more important. How do they make that decision? It's what they do with your time. Your time, the value that you put towards it, is what the time you give to it. And that's what I say when I tell you these truths, because they're true. I'm not making it up. What you're saying is, it's not my priority. It's not my priority.
Right.
And that's, by the way, how God looks at it. God looks at it is, it's not my priority. I don't care that he's going to basically be oppressive to your family, which is the church. That's what he's going to do. That alone should make every Catholic say, I can't vote for this guy. But by voting for him, what you're saying is this is not my priority.
Right.
Whatever that priority is your business. And I'm not here to point fingers at you. I'm just telling you what your actions say. You see, I don't understand it. And I'm not making it up.
Nope, not making it up. So anyway, Archbishop Gomez, Joe pointed it out. He gave you the statements that he made. They're spot on. No question about it. Now here's my thing. Most people, especially people that are listening to us, have heard of the story of Our Lady of Akita. Okay? That is, I believe, an approved apparition.
It is.
All right? So some are not approved, or it's a matter of if you want to or not believe it. But Fatima, Akita, those are approved. Okay? And at Akita, Our Lady said that there will come a time where you're going to have cardinals against cardinals and bishops against bishops. And why does that shock anybody? Because we're so used to it now. It wasn't always that way. I mean, there's always been some differences in the church and arguments in the church and heresies that needed to be put down, okay? But Gomez comes out with this statement that is not even controversial in the least. It is it's a reiteration of Catholic teaching.
And it's charitable.
All right, and I thought the letter was very pastoral and charitable.
Charitable.
Okay? Was not throwing darts at Joe Biden.
No.
He was making it clear that he supports moral evils, okay? On the heels of this, Cardinal Cupich had to take it upon himself to say that the statement was ill-advised. He said some other things too. But he basically went back at Archbishop Gomez for writing what was essentially a truthful letter and a pastoral letter to, in general, to Joe Biden, okay? And Cupich went at him, oh, well, you didn't consult with us first. Well, why does he have to consult with you? This is not controversial. This is not controversial at all. And Cardinal Cupich is known to have done this. And just to remind everybody out there who's watching us now at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, if you're just joining us, follow us on YouTube, Facebook. We're going across 20 different platforms right now. We're going across BitChute, whole 9 yards. So wherever you see an opportunity to support by liking the video, sharing the video, please do so. Now, anybody who's been watching the front line with Joe and Joe knows we covered a story from last year where Bishop Paprocki, okay, now this speaks to why I brought up Akita. Bishop Paprocki in Illinois, okay, Springfield or Peoria? Either way, Illinois.
I think it's Peoria.
Illinois, not where Cardinal Cupich is, okay? Basically said that if Joe Biden, if Joe Biden showed up at my communion, Senator Durbin. Told Senator Durbin, you were once pro-life, you need to rethink your position, and by the way, don't show up to Holy Communion because we will not, in my diocese, you will not receive Holy Communion, okay? And he said it, and again, in a very pastoral way, all right? No sooner than Bishop Paprocki issued that statement, that very week, Cardinal Cupich had a conference call on immigration with guess who? Durbin. Senator Dick Durbin. Now, why is Our Lady always spot on? Because people like Cardinal Cupich. Now, we're not going to bishop bash, okay? However, Cardinal Cupich, let me ask you something. Do you find it necessary that when your brother bishops, when they say something, okay, that is spot on and truthful and in line with Catholic teaching, that you need to go back at them? And by the way, when you go back at them, do you consult with them first before you put out your statement? Like you said that Archbishop Gomez should have? No, you don't consult with them. You just go on ahead and do it, okay? The difference is, though, you're attacking these charitable and pastoral statements that are being made, because Paprocki was charitable when he told that to Durbin, okay? But you're attacking these charitable pastoral statements, okay, and attacking your brother bishops, and you don't have any good reason to do so. You, Cardinal Cupich, you are fulfilling Our Lady's prophecy at Akita, and you really need to stop doing that, because as people in the comment box are in the chat room are commenting, okay, there is too much confusion in our Catholic Church. There's too much confusion, and I'm sorry, Your Eminence, you're contributing to it when you do things like that. You're confusing people.
And it's a shame. And it's noteworthy. It's noteworthy because we are one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. There should be no confusion, particularly among high-ranking prelates in America. And again, it's for the average person, when they hear something like that, it creates a scandal.
That's right.
And it's a sin, if you ask me.
And two things, scripturally speaking, okay? One, I know that I have right. Jesus prayed to the Father that we all be one, because Jesus knew that we would have divisions. He prayed that we all be one, okay? Everybody who reads Scripture knows that. That's what he prayed for. The other thing is, I think it was St. Paul who prayed in his epistle, but he says, I pray that you all be of one mind. He's talking to the church. He's talking to the church. So you know what Joe and I do? We pray, amongst our other intentions in our prayers, that the church be, all in the church, be of one mind. We should all make that a central intention when we're praying our rosaries and any other prayers that we're praying. When we're praying for intentions, okay? Don't pray for the mega millions. Don't pray for the Powerball. Those are treasures that come and they go. But that if we were of one mind, this world would change. The problem is the Catholic Church, unfortunately, right now is not of one mind, and we need to be.
Let's talk a little bit about a subject that Matt Walsh from the Daily Caller discussed this week: subsidiarity. It's a very, very important subject.
It's a hugely important subject.
And to be honest with you, it's a very I think Catholic idea. I want to read to you what he had to say, and then I think it'll spark an interesting discussion. He said, "The question then becomes, what now? Where do we go from here? What does the road ahead look like? Is all hope lost? Are we doomed? Should we give up? I think the answer to the last three things are no, no, and no. Hope is not lost. We are not doomed, and we should not give up. There is, in fact, a silver lining around this big dark cloud. Now, finally, conservatives can stop looking to one man in Washington to save them and their families, and instead focus on making an impact where it really matters and can be felt. Going forward, the most important fight is exactly where it always has been, though we have largely neglected it in favor of focusing on national politics. Pay attention to this. He says the fight is in the culture at the most local levels. The true battle for the future of the country is happening right around us, within our arm's reach. And we can win profound victories in the arena if we are willing to put in the effort." He's talking about subsidiarity.
Right.
He's talking about from the ground level, your family, your community, your town.
Now, we had Tim Gordon on. This is a few months ago, and we were talking about his book. We were talking about a lot of things. We were talking about, we were alluding to his book, Catholic Republic. Now, what he said, okay, was that we do have the principle of subsidiarity in our Constitution. It's called federalism. The American way of saying subsidiarity, which is a Catholic principle, is federalism. Things are best solved on a local level. Doesn't it make sense to anyone? Take New York City. Why does New Jersey, where we live, have to be like New York City? If New York City wants to be Sodom and Gomorrah, or the dark place that the prodigal son went to, why do we have to be that way? Why can't we be the Father's house? Why can't, and we be a haven in the middle of all the darkness? Well, that means that we have to practice the principle of subsidiarity, which means we get up off our butts, we go down to the local school board. When the drag queen goes into the library, we go to the mayor's office and we say, we don't want the drag queens reading books to our 5-year-olds because it's confusing to 5-year-olds, and a whole host of things that we could do on our local level. Now, I think you were going to mention, Matt Walsh mentioned something about...
he mentioned schools. He basically
schools.
says you could basically start homeschooling associations and you could take control of your community. Basically, because clearly the public schools, it's the largest union in America, the public school union, and they are basically leftist, basically think tanks that are basically shoving those ideas down your kid's throat.
I think think tank might be giving them a little bit too much credit, but we know where you were going.
But in terms of what I mean by that is this whole transgenderism. This is all part of their agenda. They're basically indoctrinating our kids, and they're pulling them away from us. And here's the thing, years ago you would hear things like, well, our school system's really good. It's, we pay a lot of money, a lot of tax money. Well, that's going on in the richest schools, in the richest states, to the poorest schools in the poorest states.
You don't think gender ideology is going on
everywhere.
at Livingston High School?
Everywhere. It might even be more so in the richer towns than in the poorer communities.
You know what? I wouldn't be shocked. And again, we don't want to be judgmental, but a lot of those suburban parents, school is just a place to drop off your kids, okay? Because we have both parents working, of course, even when it's not needed, okay? Both parents are working, okay? And they drop the kids off at school, and they pay no attention to what goes on at the school. And the school, we all know, because we covered it a million times on this show, they will teach your kids things without your consent. And they will tell the kids, don't tell your parents that I told you that. Like telling a 13-year-old boy that he could be a girl, things like that, okay? But like Joe's right. You think because you're going to a public school in Alpine, okay, or in the richer parts of Bergen County or Morris County, you think you're going to a public school, you think you're going to escape New Jersey state regulations when it comes to education? Murphy passed this last year in the dead of night. When COVID was the only thing on the front page, Murphy put this into law in the middle of the night. So guess what? You have LGBT nonsense right down all the way through the curriculum. I don't know how you inject that into math. I'm still trying to figure that out. Okay, I know you could do it in health class. I know you could do it in your sex ed class. I don't know how, when you're looking at the Pythagorean theorem, I don't know how you're going to worm in LGBT issues, but they'll figure out a way.
And the choice is yours. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do, like limit television, like not have a television. You know, it's your home. You invite things in your home, or you choose not to. I mean, that's what it is. You know, the home is the domestic church. You either invite ideas into your home or you don't.
Right.
You know, this is what we have to do.
I want to mention Dave the Hermit's in the chat room. He said Nineveh repented. That's right. Nineveh did repent, but it took Jonah to go and talk to the king. Okay. And then the king went out and proclaimed and told the people, well, we have to repent, or else God's gonna destroy us. Okay. And yes, you're right, Dave. And I'm sure you know better than me. That's what he did. I like to think, and I'm not going to compare myself to Jonah, and I don't want to die in the belly of a fish for 3 days and then get vomited up onto the shore.
That's what it took.
Okay. But it would be the equivalent. I would say this. I've thought about that, Dave. It would be the equivalent if God told me, Joe, you have to go down to the East Village, and you have to go into that particular bar, which is a gay bar, and you have to proclaim the gospel. I think I can sympathize with Jonah if God asked me to do that, and I might go west rather than go east. But having said that, I'm not joking, and you make a very good point. Nineveh repented. If we all join our voices together, Dave, and we keep proclaiming these truths, which it represents absolute truth, which is Jesus Christ, and we get it out there, and we do it even thwarting big tech and the government trying to clamp down on us, if we continue to do it, then perhaps America will repent. And America, I don't need to tell you and the rest of all the good people out there that are watching us, America needs repentance. Somebody said in the chat room, America sold its soul on January 23rd, 1973. 22nd, the anniversary date of Roe versus Wade. Right. You must be watching The Frontline with Joe and Joe. We say that all the time. America is not a very good, and what I mean by good, moral place right now because of the things that Archbishop Gomez said. The things that Biden supports, abortion, gay marriage, contraception, transgenderism, all of it. Like I said, it's got nothing to do with taxes or your position on immigration, okay? It has to do with these moral issues. America is not a moral place right now. America needs to repent, and we can be Jonahs in this culture. And we have this beautiful technology that was not created by Al Gore, by the way. I found this out. No, I'm going to break this to you. Al Gore did not invent the internet. God did. And we need to use it for his purposes. So we can all be Jonahs, and we could say the truth, and hopefully many people in America will repent. Hopefully America itself, as reflected in its laws, will repent, particularly of the sin of abortion.
Let's talk a little bit about Trumpism. Huckabee, as in the ex-governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, said basically it's not going anywhere, and I would agree with him. He made some interesting statements. I want to read to you some of them, and then we're going to talk about them. I think he's spot on. He basically says, it was very evident that throughout his campaign, he's talking about Trump, and his presidency, that this was a president that never apologized for America. We know we have got some sores and wounds and some ugly things in our past, but basically we are also the one nation in the history of civilization that has opened up prosperity and possibility for not just ourselves and our own people, but people around the world. And this president didn't apologize for who we are and where we come from. Now pay attention to this. He's spot on in this, and he breaks this, he gives an analogy. He's spot on. He says, I often said during the campaign in 2016, you can go into a Waffle House. Let me stop right there. In New Jersey, we don't go to Waffle House. We go to the diner.
We go to diner.
Let me just stop there. I had to do that.
Taylor ham, egg, and cheese.
I'm sorry, Mr. Huckabee. No Waffle House.
By the way, I went to breakfast with my brother the other day. Taylor ham, egg, and cheese.
Oh, without a doubt.
And extra crispy home fries. Go ahead, Joe.
So, he says he uses the Waffle House. I use the diner. He says you'll see four guys sitting around drinking their coffee, like kind of huddled and close, where no one else can hear them. And they would talk about the things they really believe in. He continued, Donald Trump would go to the podium and in a microphone in front of 25,000 people say what those guys just said, and people celebrated it. He was speaking for working class people, for the common guy. And he has launched a movement, and that movement isn't going anywhere. I think of a lot of people may say, oh, Donald Trump, he's gone today. He may not be the president, but his message and the principles upon which he built his presidency, and pay attention to this, not his personality, but his message and the principles of building the country and putting American people first isn't going anywhere. Let me stop right there. A lot of people did not like Donald Trump. And I know people, I disagree with this approach, but listen, people do what they do. They say, I don't like him, I'm not voting for him. Donald Trump was kind of an obnoxious man. Let's be honest. He's from Queens. He's aggressive. He's not for everybody. His personality, but his policies were effective in many respects. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to create a void. The policies minus the personality and putting America first is where charity begins, in the home. What Huckabee is saying is spot on. The MAGA movement is now the movement of the common man. It used to be the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not for the common man.
Well, they're not that they were ever for the common man, but we can't even call them the Democrat Party anymore. They are the Marxist Party. The voices in that party that most people would call moderate, to me, if you're pro-abortion, you're not a moderate, okay, because you believe in baby killing, but leave that aside. The ones that present themselves as more moderate, they don't have a voice. Let's say the ones who would favor restrictions on abortion, okay? Health and safety standards, which even the Supreme Court didn't allow, in the ways that big abortion literally gets away with murder on so many levels, okay? Those moderate Democrats, if you want to call them moderate, have no voice in that party. The Marxists have taken over that party. That's the way it is. It's not a Democrat party. It is a Marxist party.
And the common man basically keeps the wheel turning. And this is where Trump, in the next 4 years, and Stephen Mosier, who basically, just for those who may not know who he is, he's the president of the Population Research Institute. He's done a lot of work with regard to China. He made some interesting statements. He basically echoed what Huckabee said. He said, the MAGA movement, a movement based on faith, family, life, and freedom, is alive and well. And there is no doubt that the Democrats remain terrified by it and by the man who inspired him. He said that this second phony impeachment, which Pelosi reportedly is not even going to be sending to the Senate, is proof of that enough. They are terrified of Donald Trump. Terrified, because here's the deal. Donald Trump has the support of 75 million Americans.
Those are the people that voted for him.
I'm just saying.
The number is probably a lot more than that.
This is no joke. And this is the predictions that Mosier basically made. We'll see. He says this: in 2021, Trump will start a conservative media company and make billions of dollars.
Stop right there. That's all I want Donald Trump to do. Well, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to take that back. Joe, go to the next one, then I'll stop you.
In 2022, the MAGA movement candidates will endorse basically members of the House and the Senate, retiring many rhinos and Democrats.
Stop right there. Sorry. If Donald Trump did those two things, okay, and Joe's going to tell you what Stephen Mosher goes on to say the next prediction is, I'll take those two things. The reason why is this. Donald Trump could be more effective using his money to create a behemoth of a media company in America that really sucks a lot of the viewership away from CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, okay? Where you have real authentic voices, patriots' voices, where you have places in that media company for shows like Joe and Joe. We're not pitching Donald Trump, but we're saying where, let's say, we come from a particular point of view. In our case, we're tackling the culture war and the politics from a decidedly Catholic point of view. That would be phenomenal if you could do that. That's one of the major battles in the culture war, is to take power away from the media, okay? And number two, he could use his, let's say, if you want to call him the leader of this movement, he could use that in these midterm elections in 2022. And he could be very effective in not only getting the House back, not just with Republicans. Remember, I'm tired of R's at the end of people's names. They stab us in the back too much, okay? Way too much. Real conservatives, real down-home faith, family, working men and women, blue-collar people, not Chamber of Commerce, okay? regular people, conservative values, and putting them up to go to Congress. If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's a bartender, let's face it, I'm not knocking it because I'm a server, okay? So I'm not denigrating her in any way, okay? But she's a bartender. If she could sit in Congress, so can I. So can I. And I know I could sit in Congress, okay? Those people are not that smart, no matter what they tell you, okay? But my point is that I think he could throw weight behind some of these candidates and have a dramatic impact in the midterm elections. And, well, Joe, go ahead. What's his third prediction?
Well, basically, he says that Donald Trump, I don't know about this, and I don't know if I necessarily agree. He'll be reelected back to the office. I'll be truthful with you. I don't know if that's... I think he should be the kingmaker. I agree with him on points 1 and 2. Could it happen? It could happen.
Can I throw 2 cents in there?
Sure.
Here's my thing about Donald Trump, okay? And Joe's right. But we have to be honest with ourselves. Jesus said you have to be innocent as doves and shrewd as serpents. Donald Trump is shrewd in many ways. But one thing he showed himself incapable of doing, he constantly played into their hands and he said the wrong things. He fed them a little bit too much, and then they used it against him. If he had been a little bit more shrewd, okay, in the way he spoke to the press, in the way, I didn't mind that he tweeted, but sometimes his abrasive nature came across and it turned off a lot of people. I know this because I supported Donald Trump, and I remember many times in his presidency where I said, why did he do that? Why did he give them that? He didn't have to give them that. He could have won it on the merits, whether it was an argument of some kind. Why did you do that? What Donald Trump needs to do is Donald Trump, like Joe said, he needs to be the kingmaker.
That's what that's in an effective manner, and he could do that through the media, and also, frankly, he could potentially start another party.
I would pray.
And he could pull from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and crush them both. You know, Howard Schultz had that idea. Basically, he wound up getting, I think he got cancer in the very beginning of this election cycle. Howard Schultz.
Who, the Starbucks guy?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He was running as an independent. The idea, it's a good idea because basically the country is sick and tired of this nonsense. It's a good idea, but Trump is positioned well for it. It could potentially work. We shall see. But at the minimum, I do think he's going to start a media company, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think he's going to crush it.
Now, if he starts a media company, what we're relying on is all you good fans of the front line with Joe and Joe. When the time comes, you need to bombard that media company with emails and say, you guys got to put on the front line with Joe and Joe. They're a perfect fit, all right?
Would that be
and I'm being serious.
Would that be a trick?
But that would be great because, listen, and then we're going to move on, but we've said a few times, okay, there are major fronts in the culture war, okay? Major fronts, okay? There are minor fronts, but there are major fronts. Joe, in my opinion, 2 of the top 5 are the media and finding a way that you could confront the media, being very creative, being shrewd, and create a media company or a family of media companies that can combat the mainstream media, again, including Fox News, and destroying public sector teachers' unions and taking their stranglehold away from public education so that we could have competition in the public school system. So along the lines of what Joe's saying, media is a big front. I hope Donald Trump can get some of his rich buddies together who are MAGA people who will put up a few $1 billion and create that company. That would be awesome.
Let's talk about Inauguration Day, because violence erupted, and it was from Antifa, but there was a twist to it. As D.C. and the federal officials around the country geared up for what many wrongly predicted would be basically an insurrection by Trump supporters on Inauguration Day, instead, Antifa members rioted and denounced Joe Biden.
Oh, this was crazy.
Denounced Joe Biden in the cities across the country. Let me break it down. In Portland, hundreds of violent Antifa rioters took to the streets to protest Biden's inauguration, with some vandalizing the Oregon Democratic Party headquarters, smashing windows, graffitiing walls, and lighting dumpsters on fire. In Seattle, Antifa rioters burned flags and wreaked havoc on businesses in Pike's Place Market, a popular tourist attraction in the city's downtown. downtown. Some carried banners calling for the abolition of ICE, cops, prisons, borders, and presidents.
Ban the presidents.
Plural. In Denver, an Antifa group burned American flags near the Capitol building, while some displayed banners emblazoned with communist, anti-fascist, and anti-Biden and anti-Trump logos and statements. You see, they don't like order. And I found this to be interesting. The mainstream media did cover this. I thought, Joe Biden, that Antifa was a figment of your imagination. He said that during the debates with Donald Trump.
Didn't he say that they were an idea?
He did.
Jerry Nadler called them a myth.
That's hysterical.
And Biden called them an idea. Well, guess what, Joe? That myth has just materialized in these cities. And you know what they're saying? F you. We didn't say that. They're saying that. Okay? They're saying F you. What are you going to do about it? All right? What are you going to do when the media ignores them? Are you going to get on your media buddies and say, well, you better call these dogs off? Let's see what happens. You see, Joe and I have pointed this out before. Yours is a very fragile coalition, my friend, Mr. Biden. A very fragile coalition. And guess what? These guys, these Antifa characters and BLM, they don't like you either. Get that through your head. They might like Kamala. They might like AOC.
But she can't hold it together.
She ain't going to be able to hold it together.
She's not, I say this all the time, and I don't want to digress, but she's not holding the Democratic coalition together.
Joe, she's going to fold like a cheap camera.
But I think that's going to be their downfall, because the American people, this is the Joe Biden wrapping paper. Joe Biden hasn't even been in the chair for a week, and the unions are starting to complain.
Well, real quick, they have a right to complain, because just as an FYI, we do provide information on here, not just our big mouth opinions, okay? At the front line with Joe and Joe. Keystone Pipeline, shut down. 11,000 blue-collar jobs, gone. Fracking, moratorium for at least, I think, 90 to 100 days. No fracking until they form a commission or analyze it.
It's never coming back.
All that is that's softening.
A segue, exactly.
They're segueing into, you know what, we decided against fracking. So anybody out in Western Pennsylvania that actually voted for Biden, you voted yourself out of a job. If anybody on the Keystone Pipeline voted for Biden, you voted yourself out of a job. He did this day one. See that? Day one, he took you out of your job. You let him lie about it, and you went ahead and voted for him anyway. Right? He lied, because we knew he lied, because he said he was going to ban fracking, and then he denied it. So we knew that he was going to lie about it, and we knew what he was going to do. My thing is, I thought it would come in the first 100 days. It came on day number 1. Okay? He took you out of your job. And guess what? That's just the tip of the iceberg. All right, we're not covering the Chamber of Commerce tonight, right?
Dave the Hermit said, I've been saying this, Dave, for a while. $5 gallons of gas, you hit it right on the head.
I filled up my tank yesterday. It cost $40. I looked at the guy. I said, oh, stop. What are you doing? He goes, hey, man. He goes, gas went up. I didn't even know.
30 cents since November. It's almost 28 cents in New Jersey. And we have actually some of the cheapest gas in the United States. It's gone up 28 cents, and they haven't even put in the policies yet. Meaning they've, policies haven't, got moving. And who does that affect the most? The poor. The poor.
Right.
When gas goes up, everything goes up. How do you think food is distributed? Through trucks. Everything goes up.
Oil is used for everything.
Everything. That bleeds into everything. Listen, I'm for clean energy too. How about you establish an infrastructure first? You're going to tell me that you're going to say to a bus driver that made $60,000 a year in New Jersey, that lives in Passaic, a city, or Patterson, and has 4 kids. He makes $60,000 a year, might have another job, or maybe have another 2 jobs to keep his family alive. He's got to buy an electric car for $50,000. The guy that makes $60,000 and has 2 other jobs on the weekend to live.
Right.
Where are you going? Then he has to get some type of some type of battery that probably costs additional money.
Mm-hmm.
Where's he going to do that? Is that practical?
No. And that's the thing. Daniel McShane's in the chat room. He said 56. Now, thank you, Daniel. And we trust that our people in here know what they're talking about. Okay. Daniel said 56,000 jobs lost. And it hasn't even been a week, all by direct action of Joe Biden when it comes to Keystone, fracking, and the Southern and the wall.
We know Danny. Danny works in manufacturing. He manufactures medical goods, medical products. He's been laid off. Just so you know.
All right. So we'll see how everybody's feeling in 2 years. Okay. We're not going to cover it tonight. Tomorrow night, we're on the Crusade channel, our normal show, and we would encourage everybody to. Do have one more story we want to talk about, but real quick. On the Crusade channel, we're going to talk about it, but you could do a 30-day free subscription to the Crusade channel, Mike Church's channel out of Louisiana, at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. You could see us there at Mike Church, a great lineup there, so we'll throw that out. But we're saving that story for tomorrow. But just to mention it to you guys, why this is the tip of the iceberg. Now, this is what we mean by don't accuse us of bashing the left all the time. Those right-wing Chamber of Commerce guys, right on cue, okay, telling Biden, we want you to open the borders and reestablish relations with China, start bringing in foreign workers. And this is the nefarious part. This is what makes me want to be uncharitable. And I'm trying to be charitable. Christ is my witness. I'm trying to, in my heart, be a charitable guy and have love in my heart. But these are the things that anger me. Then they try to sell it that it's going to be good for the American worker. That's a Chamber of Commerce.
And that's where I say it's like talking to a drug addict. Because these are the same people that, I'll be honest with you, I bang my head against the wall. I don't know what to say. It's like talking to a drug addict. It's like watching someone who is taking heroin and you know they're going to die. You're cutting your own throat. You're cutting your own throat.
Right.
I don't understand it because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just going to be straight up. The gas thing's not going to affect me. I don't commute. I now work from home. I don't drive. I have an Echo. It gets $40, 40 miles to the gallon.
I thought it got 62
and
miles
then
to the gallon.
I have a what's it called? Then I have a big minivan for the kids. That's just for driving local. It doesn't affect me. It affects the poor. They're going to get crushed. And these are the people they say they're for. It's the biggest lie I've ever heard. And it's like talking to a drug addict. They don't want to hear it. It's sad. It's sad.
It really is sad.
But I want to put a finer point on the Antifa conversation, okay? Because we talked about some violence on Inauguration Day, and it was directed at Joe Biden. Keep this in mind, that BLM and Antifa rioters inflicted more than $2 billion in damages in businesses, churches, federal buildings, and other downtown structures in some of these same cities, looting, vandalism, and other crimes. Rioters brought damage across more than 20 states.
Now catch this next stat.
Leaving 30 people dead in their wake.
But that's a mostly peaceful protest.
And these riots were largely ignored by the media as just isolated instances of property damage or justified in the name of racial justice. These are facts.
Now, my message to Joe Biden is a very simple one. Your side built this Frankenstein. Now you can't control them. You can't control them because they hate you just like they hated Donald Trump, just like they hate Joe and Joe. Because these are people these are antichrist people. They hate order. They hate truth. They hate. Their whole being is hatred of something. But they don't know what it is. I would argue, and I'm not a psychoanalyst, that they probably hate themselves and their own lives. And because of that, they don't want you to live a good life. Okay? But that's a whole other conversation. But get it through your head, Mr. Biden. They hate you, and you created them. Because you and your media buddies let them go all summer long to do what Joe just described. $2 billion worth of damage. Guess what? You have to deal with them now.
Well, we want to end our show on a positive note. And basically, the Biden years, God works in mysterious ways, could very much leave America, and I'm speaking America, leave it stronger for the right than basically it went in. Okay? And how is that possible? Well, there are a number of strategic advantages and strategies available to the American people, basically right now. And I just want to kind of touch on a few of them and what the Biden basic regime is going to do in terms of many things are going to come to the surface. One, recognizing corporate media as a propaganda machine. I think that's already established. It's only going to become more clear.
I think that media corporation that we hope either Donald Trump or Steve Bannon and Steve Bannon's already doing it with Real America's Voice, okay, and a lot of others. What I would suggest is they constantly hammer home whether it be Trump creating a media company or the ones that are already out there, we're going to do it here too. To constantly let everybody know that the mainstream media in America is a propaganda machine for the Marxist Party in America. Do what they do. Obviously it works, so do what they do. Keep repeating it over and over and over and over and over again. The difference is you'd be telling the truth. They repeat lies. We repeat the truth. They're a propaganda machine. Let's keep repeating it, and let's tell everybody we know that they are a propaganda machine.
There's going to be crystal clear clarity around the left's real goals. Joe Biden has not been in the chair for a week, and some of that has already been revealed, particularly around his transgender executive order. Give it time, and real Americans, i.e., people who vote on the Democratic side of the House, regular people are going to be like, wow, I thought Joe Biden was a centrist, or wow, I simply just hated Donald Trump and thought Joe Biden was going to bring unity. There are people who think that.
And don't wait for your 12-year-old freshman daughter in high school to be in the same locker room with a 17-year-old male senior who thinks he's a girl, and who Joe Biden, because of his laws, executive orders, or whatever, the Equality Act, okay, because we said that's going to be on the table. Don't wait for that to happen to your daughter. Don't, okay? Do something about it now. We have to raise our voices now. Again, subsidiarity, we should be doing that more on a local level. Tell the federal government to kick rocks. If you're in, we're supposedly, Jonathan's telling us that there's a lot of people from Texas. We love it. A lot of people from the Lone Star State.
It's all good, baby.
All right. If Texas doesn't want any of this nonsense, well, just pass laws in Texas. Say, no, we're not recognizing any of this. Let the NFL boycott you. Let the NBA boycott you. They'll be back because Texas is a huge market. Don't worry about it. And tell the federal government to kick rocks. Boys are not going into girls' rooms in our state. Okay? But get it straight. Don't wait for this to happen. Start voicing your opposition to it now, and don't let them bully you.
There has been and there's going to be a separation in the GOP from big business. The GOP, or the MAGA movement, which it's going to turn into, is now the party of the common man. This is going to be more pronounced in the years to come. Also, it's going to force our population in America, and I'm already seeing it on social media with people who don't regularly speak up, to basically start thinking about first principles. What do I mean by first principles? God and family. Mm-hmm. Because they are going to attack it and are attacking it, and people who are indifferent or were indifferent are soon not going to be. Mm-hmm. And lastly, pure persecution purifies, and it creates solidarity.
You know who you could ask about that? Go ask the Poles in the 1970s and the 1980s when they were being persecuted by the Soviet Union, when they had a puppet leader in Poland that was oppressing them and persecuting them. And in that persecution, God raised up, well, a saint, St. John Paul II, Pope St. John Paul II, okay, along with others, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, and a little-known guy, a Union guy named Lech Walesa, okay?
And the priest, right? What's the priest? Jersey, I can't believe
Not Kaczynski.
No. Father Jersey, someone in the chat room, please, I have a movie. I've seen the movie. He's also on his way to sainthood. Oh. He basically was like the priest for the Solidarity movement.
So if you want to see an example of persecution purifying a people, okay, and then bringing them together under God, authentically under God, okay, and throwing off what essentially was, at its moment, at its height, the most powerful regime, if you want to talk about, let's say, the Soviet Union and its satellite states, okay, in all of human history. The Soviet Union was extremely powerful, okay, but yet these people, through their persecution, who came together under God, okay, threw them off and said, I mean, George Weigel wrote the book, right? 9 Days.
No, that was on Newt Gingrich. It's the film.
It's the film. 9 Days that changed the world. Okay, the communists looked at these people while Pope St. John Paul II was celebrating Mass, and in the middle of Mass, they started chanting, "We want God, we want God." Hundreds of thousands of people, and the communists at that point knew that their jig was up. And the game was over.
August, Father Papalusko. That's it. Jersey Papalusko. Check out the film. Check out his life. That dude wasn't playing games.
Thank you, Annie.
Truth to power. And you know something? God works in mysterious ways. I've said this. I'm going to say two things. One, our job is to remain faithful. I'm going to do nothing different. Actually, I'm going to do more. I'm going to pray more.
Tell them about the Rosary Rally.
Yes, this is something Joe and I recently started. We are going to start a first Saturday all-men's public rosary. We invite all people to do the same. Speak to your pastors. Get a bunch of men together. We have a banner from TFP, and every first Saturday on a busy corner, we are going to pray the rosary, men, publicly. We're praying for our God and for our country. And because Our Lady asked us to pray on the first Saturday to make reparations for the sins of mankind, God will hear our prayers. We invite you to do the same.
And let us know.
And let us know that you did it. All you have to do is ask your pastor. And you know something? I'll make you a bet. He probably will do it. And if he says no, go to another church and ask. Get a group of guys, even if it's 3 of you. Get a banner of Our Lady and sit there and pray. And pray. And secondly, I want to talk about what Father Hardin said. He's a Jesuit. He said Catholics are to do a few things. We're to know the truth, we're to speak the truth, we are to live the truth, and we are to suffer for the truth. We are to pray for Joe Biden because he is a Catholic, and we pray for his conversion. We are to fast for our nation and for our church, and we are to suffer any and all persecution that goes along with taking a no-nonsense stance, no compromise stance, because that's what Catholics do. And that's what we're to do, and that's what will change the world. I got news for you. Politics isn't changing the world. Now, what's going to change the world? The gospel. And living it. We need to live it. And how do we live it? We need to be transformed. How do we get transformed? Prayer, fasting, and living a sacramental life. And that is how we make America great.
That's right. And just so everybody doesn't, I want to remind everybody before we go, just a quick, and most of you know this, but for those of you who don't, Moses liberated the Jews. Moses led the Jews under God out of Egypt, okay, and back to the Promised Land. But Moses never saw the Promised Land. He died before seeing the Promised Land. We might not see the fruit of our labor. We might not be around. It might take a generation. We might all be dead by then, okay? But remember, Moses is in heaven, and that's where we all want to go, all right? And the things we do here, the things we do that are pleasing to God, the fight that we are fighting against with this evil that's corrupted America, that's corrupted our institutions, most sadly, which has corrupted our church, okay? We're going to fight against it. We may see the Promised Land and still be alive when these things either begin to change or fully change. We might see that. We might not, okay? But remember, the goal is heaven. That's where we're all looking to get. Every single one of us. And we're trying to make this world a better place in the meantime so that more people go to heaven. So we want to leave it on that note. And we want to thank you all so very much. We had a great crowd listening to us tonight, where I think we have a couple thousand comments altogether in the chat room. A lot of great conversations going on there. We're very, very honored, very, very humbled that you would take the time to listen to us. I believe Lorraine in the chat room said, first time listening, I'm impressed. We hope that we're telling you the truth, Lorraine. We hope that we're saying the things that need to be said and fighting this good fight. So we thank you so much for the compliment. So remember to follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube, and like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Wherever you're watching us, please support us in any way you can. Holy Faith Media up in Canada. Jonathan Ross, like, subscribe, share with Holy Faith Media also. And thank you once again. Until next week, remember that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation, that's going on everywhere. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening, guys. God bless you.